And that catches us up today because today we get into the story, and the story is about a guy named Solomon, the son of David, who becomes the king. Well, I'm not sure where all of you are in your post-Christmas celebration, but ours took an interesting turn this week. I wonder how many of you have gotten your tree down already. Everybody, raise your hand if you got your tree down. Okay. How many of you had a real tree this year? Any of you have a real tree? Okay. And how many of you have removed that tree within the last, let's say, week to 10 days? Yeah. Okay. Oh, not as many. How many of you have done it within the last 36 hours? Looking, no hands up. Okay, if you raised your hand, if anybody saw a hand, please send them to talk to me after the service, because it's something I want to talk to them about. You'll know why in just a second. I preached on Christmas Eve about our withered tree. If you were here, I talked about how it was just really a problem and it was everywhere, and it was really a bad deal. But somebody must have thought that I needed some inspiration and celebration. So this is the picture outside of our house yesterday morning. If you'll see all of the Christmas trees on the side of the driveway. And, there was one here on the left. That's pretty withered. I mean, that's like the one that I got rid of, Some of these were pretty new. One of them even wound up in the basketball hoop. Thank you to whoever did this at the front door and everything. Thank you to whoever did this. And my wife says you can kindly pick them up now whenever you want to. But here's the thing. I realize I have to be careful what I preach about, right? I mean, it may just show up in my driveway next week. And so today I want to talk to you about a Lexus and a BMW. Somebody said after the first service, maybe some gold would show up in the driveway after talking about Solomon. Actually, that's a great lead-in, though, to what we want to talk about today, because that's the wisdom of Solomon. He didn't ask for the BMW and the Lexus. He didn't ask for the gold and silver. He asked for something else, and God blessed him. He asked God for wisdom. Listen to what he says in 1 Kings chapter 3. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I'm only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people. You have chosen a great people, too numerous to count in number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this, so God said to him, since you've asked for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment and administering justice, I will do for you what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both riches and honor, so that in your lifetime you'll have no equal among kings. Well, Solomon asked for wisdom, but God gave him so much more. Because he chose wisely, God showered him with blessings that probably you and I could only dream about or imagine. Under Solomon's leadership, alliances were made with countries all around. And King Solomon really had authority from the Euphrates River, which is sort of where Assyria begins, and all the way down to Egypt. He really controlled this vast area. And in so doing, what you need to know is that this area was a crossroads for the nations. If you wanted to get anywhere in the then known world, you needed to come through Israel. And Solomon took advantage. He set up a little toll booth along the way, so that if you were moving from Egypt, for example, up to the Hittite or Asia Minor area, he would charge you a little fee. And if you wanted to trade arms between the Egyptians and the Hittites, there was a little fee added. Also, if you wanted to get bread from Egypt, there'll be a little tax with that. He was very wise in discerning how to bring wealth into this great nation. But God blessed him in so many ways. Not only through alliances and trades, but God really gave him an ability to discern. And whatever he did always brought him more wealth. Now, if you think of rich kings, who's the first king that comes to your mind? King Tut, right? I mean, you think of this exhibit that came to America so many years ago. He was a relative unknown, however, for many centuries. From the 13th century, 14th century BC, he ruled for a very short time, only 10 years. Died probably at the age of about 19. There's sort of a dispute as to what caused his death. Some say it was potential malaria. Others say it was maybe an infection from a broken leg. Others say it was still yet a chariot race that he might have been involved in, and some of the bruises that are on his body or some of the defects on his body. But we'll never know. But even then, what we do know about him is that when he died, they filled his tomb with lots and lots of wealth. When he was dead, he had a lot more money than when he was alive. And his tomb was filled with all sorts of things. And people come now from all over the world to see the riches and wealth of his death, not necessarily of his life. He's known better in death than he is in life. I think the story of Solomon is a bit of an antithesis to that. The story of Solomon is really the story of a man while he was alive, who made wise decisions, accumulated wealth due to his incredible abilities. People came from all over to experience Solomon. He was so great that the Queen of Sheba from the Ethiopia area came all the way up to visit him, along with many others. She was just one mentioned in the Bible. Interesting about that visit, we're not exactly sure of what happens, but we do know that from this time, there is a Jewish population that dates into Ethiopia. What we understand is that Solomon was not just filled with wealth, but with wisdom. God gave Solomon wealth, but he also gave him this great gift of wisdom, which is why people came to say, when Queen of Sheba came, she said, your wisdom is far beyond what I ever thought it was. I had heard about it and how great it was, but you've proved it to be even more than what I could have comprehended. Listen to some of his wisdom. And if you read the story today, you'll read a little bit out of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and the Song of Solomon, all of which are attributed to Solomon and his court. But listen to these words from Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Notice Solomon begins with his focus in the right place. When Solomon starts, he asks God for wisdom. He wants God to live in his life. He wants, this God who has directed him to the throne. He wants him to be first in all things. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Well, not only did he write something like that, but he inspired the birds to sing, to every day, to every thing there is a season, to every day turn, right? Remember that? A time to be born and a time to die, a time to mourn and a time to dance. That song from the 60s comes out of Solomon's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, that great passage of Scripture. But the Song of Solomon, also beautiful, a love story about a man and a woman, which is really an analogy between our relationship with God. Set me as a seal upon your heart, God says to us, for love is stronger than death. That's the kind of inspiration that Solomon had in his life. I think his best, though, is reserved for Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Listen to this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Boy, trust in the Lord. Lean on him, not on yourself, and everything will go well from there. Solomon really did have a lot of wisdom, and he had a lot of wealth. Jesus talked about Solomon in the New Testament. Jesus was trying to teach his followers, and so Jesus said this to them. He said, consider the lilies, how they grow. They don't labor or spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his splendor was not dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, oh, you of little faith? Jesus says, listen, I know you want to be like Solomon. I know you want to know. I know you want the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffett, the Ted Turner. You want all the money. You want the fame to go with it. You want to be the J-Lo or the Oprah or the Lady Gaga, maybe not. But you want what comes with great fame and wealth. But really, what you really need is simply to keep your focus in the right place. Solomon had all this, Jesus said, but it didn't end well for him. Keep your focus in the right place. Well, that's the problem for a man like Solomon. He had it all. He had wealth. He had wisdom, as we said. Oh, and did I mention he had women? Another W there, right? I mean, he was married to 700 women, and he had 300 concubines, which is a form of, sort of marriage in the Old Testament. But 1,000 wives, okay? Guys, insert own joke here. I'm not going there about how you can please that many wives. But the idea is that Solomon was not led away astray by the fact that they were women, but the fact that they worshiped other gods. He married foreign women as a result of the many alliances that he made with other nations. Every time he made an alliance, a treaty with another nation, a princess came with it. All of those moved into the palace, and Solomon every day was experiencing their values. Listen to what the Bible says. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, And his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David, his father, had been. And so the smell of perfume, the lure of lust, ultimately lead him away from his focus. Trust the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on things of this world. I'm the only one left in my family with one of these. You know what this is? It's a dumb phone. And everybody else has got a smartphone now, but I kind of take pride in that. I don't insert your own joke here about those who can have smartphones. Okay, I get it. But it's not a flip phone. For those of you who still have flip phones, it's not a flip phone. But I can receive texts on it, and I can actually talk to people on this phone. And I did a little thinking about smartphones and all that they do for us. Think about it. I mean, they're cameras now, they're video players. You can play video games on it. You can search the internet, surf the internet. You can check your Facebook. You can, check your email. You can. It's a camera. You can use it as a flashlight, as a compass, as a map. And those are just the top 10 things that come to my head. And the question is, does having a smartphone make you smarter? We have so far and away much more knowledge than they did at the time of Solomon. I mean, if you think of all of the studies of this world, whether it's history or geography or biology, what was the song I don't know much about? If you think all of those disciplines, we know so much more in our day than they did at the time of Solomon. But are we any wiser for it? With our smartphones, will we ever stop checking the email? Will we ever look up and actually, talk to somebody? Will Snapchat actually take over our life rather than this face-to-face experience with each other? Are we really wiser? Well, like with Solomon, a smartphone comes with great responsibility, right? I'm not talking about smartphones here. I'm talking about living the life that God has given you. God has given you so much knowledge, so much ability to process so much, that very quickly we can start to lean on our own understanding. And we can forget to acknowledge Him, and suddenly our paths are not so straight. When we start to seek our own way, very quickly our lives get out of control. We start to find ourselves in deep trouble. If we've got a mountain in front of us, we have trouble facing it. But we hear in Scripture, with God, all things are possible. I thought of a great illustration this week as I was doing a little bit of reading, and it came in the in the play of a movie called Narnia, and it's The Voyage of Dawn Treader. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's a story of a boy named Eustace. And Eustace is, he's a kid who grew up with parents who were always into the next fad. They always wanted what was fresh and hot and exciting, and wanted to be a part of the show. And so Eustace grows up without really a sense of what's ethical. And so he comes to Narnia, and he's not used to Narnia. Narnia, you know, in C.S. Lewis's world, the writer of Chronicles of Narnia, Narnia is a place where, you know, the Christian realm exists. And so Eustace comes to this place, and he's a little disappointed in it because it doesn't have all the, it's not so technical, you know, like the world he comes from, but it is ethical. But he wants something technical, not ethical, and he has to experience that for himself. Watch what happens when he makes this discovery.
What is it? I must be dead. You're definitely dead. Won't be needing that, will you? Finally, a favourable turn of events.
He says, finally, a favorable turn of events. You know, he took the armband, this kind of magical bracelet off of this dead person. And he thinks that with that, he now has some favor. He's got wealth. He's discovered it all. But did you notice in Narnia that all of this gold is just tossed aside? It's not important at all in this country. But to him it is. And he decides to put on the arm bracelet, and as time goes along, he falls asleep on top of this big bundle of gold and silver that he's collected. And he turns into a dragon. I know, it's Narnia. But it really represents that very thing that happens to all of us when we are addicted or taken over by the desires of this world. Now think about it for us in our life. I go off to school, if I'm in school, and is it about becoming, you know, having the biggest crowd following me, having the most popularity? I go to my home, and is it about, you know, the best house? Is it about having children who achieve? I go to work, and is it about building kingdoms there and conquering at all costs? Or is it about building for the kingdom of Christ? You see, so easily all of us can get trapped in the trap that Solomon found himself in. All of the gods of the world in which we worship. There are many, and they're there, and they come to live in our house with us, just like the 1,000 women who represented these other nations and their gods. They come to live with us, and they want to steal away the joy of a relationship with Jesus Christ. I think it's pretty amazing. Scripture says, as Jesus said these words about Solomon, he says, the queen of the south will rise at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For she came from the ends of the earth to listen to Solomon's wisdom. And now one greater than Solomon is here. God wants to give us something greater than than Solomon. Solomon had a lot of great earthly wisdom, which he sort of forsook along the way. God wants to give us a wisdom that we can never lose. James 1:5 says this, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given. So what is that wisdom? Listen to 1 Corinthians 1:18. It says, for the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? He goes on to say, Jews demand miraculous signs, and Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than man's strength. When God gave Solomon wisdom, he gave him wisdom in part, a wisdom for living in this world. But when Christ came, he not only imparted to us heavenly wisdom, but he himself was God's wisdom, God's foolishness, so that in simple childlike faith, not needing to know it all, you can simply come to a relationship with Jesus. It's not what you know, but who you know in the kingdom that really matters. I want to take you back finally to one more scene from Narnia. He tries to get rid of this arm bracelet that he put on his arm. If you remember, the guy who had it on before him, it didn't turn out so well for that guy. And so he's trying to get it off, and he's trying to get rid of this death that's taken over him, this evil, this sin that's sort of taken him over, but he can't do it. He tries and tries to get it, but he can't. And finally, Aslan, the lion who represents Christ in Narnia, Aslan comes, and as he scratches it off, the scales begin to fall off, and he loses the armband. And as you watch this next scene, he no longer is the dragon, but he comes out of the depths of the sea again as Eustace. Take a look.
We did it. I knew we would.
It wasn't just us there. You mean...
Hey! I'm down here, Lucy! Over here! Lucy! I'm in the water, Lucy! Eustace! I'm a boy again! I'm a boy!
Eustace! I see your wings have been clipped! Where sky and water meet, where the waves grow ever sweet. It is sweet. It's sweet. Look.
Aslan's country. We must be close.
Well, we've come this far.
You're headed for Aslan's country, Christ's country. In C.S. Lewis's world, that's heaven. Did you notice that the waters were sweet? He was literally baptized. C.S. Lewis has him baptized in this water, and the death and the evil and the dragon is now gone as he comes forth again as a new self, a young child, seeing with new eyes, trusting, ready to be at service of the King. That's you and me. That's our story. That's the baptism God has given to all of us. Luther said we need to be drowned daily in the waters of baptism to kill off that old self, the evil and the sin that so wants to hold on to us and keep us from a relationship with Jesus, keep us from trusting in the Lord with all our heart. And so today, we're going to close the service with everybody having a chance to come and touch the waters. We have water at several places up front, a couple places up top. To come and just say over someone, dip your finger in the water and put a sign of a cross on someone that says, remember you're baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.